Tapes of Trepidation presents The 12 Scares of Christmas. Day 1. It's Christmas again. I woke up to the sound of my alarm blaring at me, the shrill beeping informing me that it was now morning and Christmas Day had officially begun. I rolled over in bed to see that my wife's side of the bed was empty. The sheets cool to the touch. She had awoken some time ago. That's when I noticed the sweet smell of gingerbread cookies coming from downstairs, telling me my wife was already hard at work preparing for the day's festivities. The scent turned my stomach, making me sick with fear and apprehension, where once it would have excited me. I looked outside. It was still snowing, the same as it always did now. The ground outside was glittering white. Snow-covered rooftops, glittering white trees, blanket of white, covering everything on the ground. All that disturbed the idyllic scene was the darkening crimson splashes that marred the otherwise pure white snow. Bodies were strewn everywhere. Some had almost reached their cars or front doors. Smears of crimson indicating their frantic struggle to get inside to safety. None had managed to. The cold had begun to freeze them even as the razor-sharp snowflakes shredded their clothes and flesh, cutting through both like a hot knife through butter. The screams had been the worst part. The frantic attempts to get back inside, all accompanied by the muffled sound of laughter. The laughter had been cruel and mocking, even gleeful, as the creatures had watched them. I looked at the window across the street from me. There was somebody there. Somebody staring at the carnage below. The congealed blood and frozen bodies. I could see from the defeated slump of their shoulders and the blank expression on their face they felt as hopeless and as trapped as I did. I saw the gun in his hand as soon as he raised his arm. His gaze swept across the street one more time as he pointed the muzzle of the pistol at his temple. His eyes met mine, and he froze as if he hadn't expected to see somebody else still moving around like him. I shook my head, praying he would understand. He had to know that putting a bullet in his head would only make things worse for him. After a few moments, he lowered the gun, letting it drop to the floor. His shoulders slumped even more, and he leant forward, his head pressed against the cold glass. He was sobbing, his spirit broken. Like me, like everybody here. He just wanted this nightmare to end, to finally be over. With a heavy sigh and a mounting feeling of despair, I forced myself to turn away from the window. I got myself ready for the big day, and then made my way downstairs. As I arrived in the downstairs hallway, my wife appeared from the kitchen, a plate filled with gingerbread cookies in one hand, a plate of cupcakes in the other, and a wide, forced smile plastered unconvincingly across her face. There was a manic glint in her eyes. I could see her sanity cracking more and more each day. But that's not what really drew my attention. My eyes were drawn to the jagged line across her throat where she had, much like the guy across the street, tried to end her life. It hadn't worked. She had simply bled for a while, and otherwise had been fine. But the knife had damaged her vocal cords, meaning now she couldn't speak, couldn't even make the slightest of sounds. Forcing a fake smile of my own, the two of us made our way into the front room. The front room was the most heavily decorated part of the house. Bits of tinsel and other flimsy decorations hung almost randomly from the ceiling, accompanied by mistletoe and Christmas lights. A fire burned away in the fireplace. In the farthest corner of the room stood a beautifully decorated tree adorned with all manner of ornaments. And under that, a pile of presents that took up every available bit of space in the area of the room. Near the fire, in the far corner left of the Christmas tree, there sat an elf. Or, rather, what claimed to be an elf. It was a hideous creature with a long, pointed nose and huge, bulbous red eyes. Its teeth were perfect white squares, which seemed wrong in such a demonic-looking face. The creature's skin was a rotten green. It was hunched forward, eyes fixed upon the flames of the fire. For just a moment, the tiniest moment, the creature looked almost melancholic. But it was only for a moment. Not long enough to be sure I saw what I thought I saw. The creature's head snapped towards us, its eyes meeting ours. Eyes filled with hatred and contempt. Eyes that made me want to drop to my knees and beg for mercy.
It's about time,
the creature said. Its voice was deep, but somehow high-pitched at the same time. The tone cold and judgmental. Merry Christmas. My voice was filled with as much forced cheer as I could muster, which admittedly wasn't a lot. The creature just glared at the two of us for several long moments, before finally hopping off the chair and gesturing to the sofa that had been placed next to the tree.
Get on with it then,
the creature commanded, and we obeyed. My wife setting down the plate on the coffee table as we went. This was the worst part of it all. The presents. We knew what was coming, but we could do nothing to avoid it. The wrapping paper glittered in the firelight as my wife tore open the first present. It was socks, moldy and moth-eaten. The creature clapped gleefully as my wife tried to look grateful for the gift. My first gift was a half-eaten year-old ready meal. A strange fuss covered everything in the tray. Again, gleefully clapping. I could hear blood rushing in my ear. A strange sense of calm washed over me then. A coldness born of the deepest hatred. Some part of me understood what this really was. This place. This unending Christmas nightmare. And that part of me began to rise up, to break free of the absolute terror that had held me in check all this time. I threw the ready meal aside and stood, stepping toward the fireplace.
And we were having so much fun,
the creature said, its voice carrying a tone of disappointment and barely concealed amusement. It was standing in front of the fireplace. The poker I had planned to take was in its hand. I barely had time to register the movement before something hit the side of my knee. There was a sickening crack in my leg as I collapsed, unable to stop the cry of pain that followed. The creature's gleeful laughter was followed by another blow, this time in the arm. Another crack of the bone followed by even greater agony. The third and final blow was to my skull. And everything went blissfully silent. I woke to the sound of my alarm blaring at me. As I opened my eyes, I saw my wife there next to me. A beautiful smile spreading across her face. I pulled her closer, and we kissed. It was Christmas once again. My favorite time of year.